The blue-white light of a distant star cluster bathed the control room of Tagria's deep space listening post in an ethereal glow. Captain Arvel Storm hunched over his console, rubbing tired eyes that had been staring at sensor readings for the past 14 hours. Despite being the shortest officer in the Imperial fleet, a fact his colleagues never let him forget, his attention to detail had earned him respect among those who valued precision over physical stature. Another quiet shift, he muttered, more to himself than to Lien, the technical officer sharing his watch. Lien snorted, not looking up from her data panel. Quiet is dangerous, Arvel. The Empire's grown complacent out here on the frontier. Our AI security systems haven't been properly updated in years. Always the optimist, Arvel said with a wry smile. The Galactic Empire had maintained peace across the stars for centuries, their mighty fleets headquartered at Regelis Prime, ensuring the continued stability of thousands of worlds. Distant outposts like Tagria, a rocky planet on the edge of explored space, were considered little more than formalities, places to station officers who needed seasoning or, in some cases, those being quietly punished with assignment to the middle of nowhere. A soft chime from Arvel's console broke the monotony. He straightened, fatigue evaporating as his eyes locked onto an anomalous reading. "What is it?" Lien asked, noticing his sudden alertness. "Signal from a Cygnus belt. Unidentified vessel." Arvel's fingers flew across the holographic interface, enhancing the data stream. "And it's... Wait, that can't be right." Lien pushed away from her station and moved to look over Arvel's shoulder. Her eyes widened. "That velocity reading... It's beyond any Imperial FTL drive specifications. Run the signature against the database," Arvel commanded, his voice dropping to a whisper as he stared at the readout. The ship was moving at a speed that defied the Empire's most advanced propulsion systems. Minutes later, Lien shook her head in disbelief. "That ship's not in any records. I've accessed every military and civilian registry. It's a complete unknown." Arvel reached for the communicator. "We need to alert the Tagria Council immediately." The Oversight Council, a mix of military officers and local dignitaries, received his report with polite skepticism. Counselor Vega, a portly man with a permanently condescending expression, let out an audible sigh. "Captain Storm, our AI defense systems detect no credible threats. The signal is clearly an anomaly, perhaps a sensor echo or radiation distortion. With all due respect, Counselor, I've cross-verified the readings. This is an unidentified vessel moving at impossible speeds directly toward Tagria." "Impossible is precisely the point, Captain," said High Administrator Tellis, her artificial eyes gleaming with artificial intelligence enhancements. "Our systems are designed to identify any potential threat. If they detect nothing, there is nothing to detect." Arvel clenched his jaw. The system can only identify what it's been programmed to recognize. If this is something entirely new... "That will be all, Captain," Counselor Vega interrupted. "Continue monitoring, but refrain from causing unnecessary alarm." Dismissed. Back at the listening post, Arvel and Lien worked through the night, tracking the mysterious vessel's trajectory. "It's definitely on an approach vector to Tagria," Lien confirmed, her face illuminated by the blue glow of holographic projections. "No course deviation for the past 8 hours. And still no response to our hails," Arvel added. "We need to send a priority alert to Regelis Prime. Bypass the Council entirely." "That would end your career," Lien said quietly. "You know how the Empire handles insubordination." Arvel stared at the projection, watching the blinking light representing the unknown vessel grow steadily closer. "Some things are more important than careers, Lien." Before they could debate further, Arvel moved to the observatory deck. Through the massive reinforced viewport, he adjusted the high-powered telescope, focusing on a distant point in space. There, barely visible, was a pinprick of light moving far too quickly for any natural celestial body. "It's moving fast," he whispered, his voice trembling slightly as the realization of what they were facing sank in. "And it's coming here." Lien joined him at the viewport, her usual cynicism absent as she watched the approaching light. What do we do now? Arvel's gaze remained fixed on the distant object. Prepare for the worst. The following morning dawned with unusual clarity on Tagria. Citizens went about their daily routines, unaware of the approaching anomaly that had kept two Imperial officers awake through the night. That tranquility was shattered when a mysterious vessel suddenly appeared in low orbit, materializing as if from nowhere. Arvel was jolted awake by emergency alarms. He'd fallen asleep at his console for barely an hour when the ship made its final approach. Now fully alert, he stared in disbelief at the readings. "It's here," he gasped. "Lien, wake up." Lien snapped to attention, her eyes immediately finding the main display. The planetary defense system isn't responding. It should have engaged automatically. They frantically checked the defensive grid status. Every automated weapon system, every orbital shield generator, all reported the same error, unknown signature. Not a threat. On the streets of Tagria's capital city, citizens gathered in confused clusters, pointing skyward at the massive silhouette now visible against the morning sun. The ship was unlike anything in the Imperial fleet, angular and dark, with pulsing lights that seemed to throb like a heartbeat along its hull. Rumors spread rapidly. Some claimed it was a ghost ship from the early days of interstellar travel. Others insisted it was an ancient weapon awakened from dormancy. Fear rippled through the population as speculation turned to panic. Arvel and Lien rushed to the council chambers, finding the members already assembled in emergency session. "Our defense systems are non-responsive," Arvel reported, not bothering with formalities. "We need to request immediate support from the Royal Fleet." High Administrator Tellus shook her head. "We cannot risk provoking a potentially peaceful visitor. Our sensors detect no weapons charging, no invasion preparations." "With respect, Administrator, our sensors also failed to identify this vessel as a potential threat," Lien countered. "We cannot rely on systems that are clearly compromised." Counselor Vega pounded his fist on the table. "And what would you have us do? Create a planet-wide panic? Alert the Empire and appear incompetent in handling our own security?" The argument was interrupted by the arrival of Ambassador Morka, the Empire's political representative to Tagria. Tall and imperious, Morka carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to unquestioned authority. "I've been briefed on the situation," he announced, dismissing Arvel with barely a glance. "This is clearly a malfunction of our detection systems, nothing more. I've already dispatched technicians to resolve the issue." "Ambassador," Arvel began, struggling to maintain protocol, "this is not a malfunction. The vessel is real, and Captain Storm, isn't it?" Morka cut him off with practiced condescension. "I understand your concern, but I assure you, the Empire faces no credible threats. Our dominance of this galaxy is absolute." Arvel bit back his response, recognizing the futility of arguing with a political appointee. Instead, he exchanged a meaningful look with Lien, who nodded almost imperceptibly. While the council debated, Lien slipped away to her station and began working to intercept any communications from the mystery ship. After hours of careful analysis, she managed to isolate a repeating signal. "Arvel, I've got something," she whispered when he returned from the council meeting. "A transmission from a ship." She played the message, its simple clarity chilling them both. "We traverse your borders. You will answer for your sins." "What sins?" Arvel wondered aloud. "And who are we?" Lien had already begun searching through the deepest archives she could access, bypassing security protocols that would have certainly earned her a court-martial under normal circumstances. "I found something," she said after hours of searching. It was buried in a classified historical database. "Have you ever heard of the Ark One?" Arvel shook his head, leaning closer to view her screen. According to this, they were an advanced species from the Cygnus sector. They engaged in conflict with the early Empire about 3 centuries ago. Her voice dropped, and then they disappeared. "Disappeared how?" Arvel asked, though he suspected the answer. Lien's face was grim. "The records are heavily redacted, but there are references to a final solution and complete pacification. I think the Empire wiped them out, Arvel. Or tried to. The implications settled over them like a shroud. If the Ark One had somehow survived, if this was their ship, their conversation was interrupted by the wail of emergency sirens. Outside, citizens pointed skyward in terror. The mystery ship had launched something, a small, cylindrical object that plummeted toward the center of the city. "We need to get down there," Arvel said, already moving toward the door. The impact site was chaos. The object had crashed directly into the central administrative complex, creating a smoking crater where the Imperial governance headquarters had stood. Local security forces had established a perimeter, but communication systems were failing throughout the area. Arvel and Lien, accompanied by a small detachment of Imperial troops, approached the edge of the impact zone. The air shimmered, with heat and particles of dust caught the sunlight like tiny diamonds. "Stay alert," Arvel ordered, drawing his sidearm. "We don't know what we're dealing with." As they neared the crater, the smoke parted to reveal a sight that stopped them in their tracks. Standing amid the rubble was a humanoid figure, nearly 3 meters tall, encased in ancient-looking but clearly advanced armor. Its surface was etched with symbols none of them recognized, and a soft blue glow emanated from seams in the plating. The machine-like entity moved with disturbing grace, systematically targeting Imperial security forces. Most unsettling was the precision. It completely ignored civilians, even helping a trapped mother and child escape from collapsed debris before continuing its advance toward the military compound. "It's only attacking Imperial military targets," Lien whispered. One of the soldiers with them raised his rifle, but Arvel pushed it down. "Wait, let me try something." Stepping forward, Arvel called out, "We wish to communicate. We mean no harm." The machine paused, turning its featureless head toward him. For a moment, Arvel thought he'd made a breakthrough. Then it spoke, its voice resonating with metallic fury in an ancient dialect that the translator struggled to process. "We endured your empire's purge. Now you face ours." It raised an arm, and Arvel braced for the end. But the machine simply pointed at his imperial insignia before turning away, continuing its methodical advance toward the military command center. "It's like it's selecting targets," Lien observed, "only attacking military personnel and installations." As they retreated to safer ground, they witnessed the machine pause again, this time to lift a section of collapsed wall, freeing a terrified woman and her young child. The contradiction was jarring. A merciless attacker showing mercy to civilians. "These aren't mindless killers," Arvel said quietly. "This is targeted retribution." While emergency services struggled to contain the chaos, Lien used the distraction to gain access to a secure terminal in an auxiliary communication center. With Arvel keeping watch, she dug deeper into the classified archives, searching for anything related to the Ark One. "Here," she said finally, her voice tight. "Project Ark Genesis. It's a classified military operation from 273 years ago." The documents revealed a truth more terrible than either had imagined. The Ark One had been a peaceful, technologically advanced civilization whose territory the expanding empire had coveted. When diplomatic annexation failed, the empire deployed a biological weapon that devastated the Ark One homeworld. Official records claimed complete extinction of the species, with all reference to the atrocity systematically purged to preserve the empire's benevolent image. "They committed genocide," Arvel whispered, the weight of the revelation crushing down on him, "and then erased it from history." "Not all the Ark One died," Lien pointed to another document. "There were rumors of survivors who escaped into uncharted space. The Empire hunted them for decades, but never confirmed their elimination. And now they've returned." Arvel stared at the terminal, the pieces falling into place. The ship in orbit, it must be their flagship. According to this fragmented record, they called their largest vessel the Aegis of Remembrance, Lien said. Their discovery was interrupted by an urgent broadcast from the planet's defense command. "All orbital defenses have been neutralized. all automated weapons systems offline, all AI targeting and navigation systems compromised. Tagria was defenseless. Ambassador Morca's voice cut through the emergency channels, demanding immediate reinforcements from Regelis Prime. His earlier confidence had evaporated in the face of actual danger. At Imperial Fleet headquarters on Regelis Prime, the initial reports from Tagria were met with skepticism. Admiral Collin, commander of the Home Fleet, reviewed the fragmentary data with a frown. A single ship bypassing all our detection systems? Impossible. He dismissed the urgent request for reinforcements with a wave of his hand. This is likely an insurgent action by separatist elements. Deploy a reconnaissance squadron, nothing more. His subordinates exchanged concerned glances, but complied with the orders. A small contingent of fast response vessels was dispatched to Tagria, though they would arrive too late to make any difference. Back on Tagria, Arvel and Lien watched in helpless horror as the Aegis of Remembrance completed whatever mission it had set for itself. The mechanical warriors it had deployed systematically disabled every military installation on the planet without a single civilian casualty, a surgical excision of Imperial military presence. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the massive ship began to move away from Tagria, leaving behind a crippled planetary defense system and a population reeling from the revelation that they had been attacked not by mindless aggressors, but by the ghosts of a civilization their empire had tried to erase. Standing amid the ruins of what had once been the command center, Arvel and Lien looked up at the departing silhouette against the darkening sky. "This isn't over," Lien said softly. "They've only just begun." The aftermath of the Tagria incident spread through the empire like wildfire. Despite official attempts to control the narrative, describing the attack as an isolated terrorist incident, the truth about the Archon's return could not be contained. The machine warriors had deliberately left behind data crystals containing historical records of the Empire's genocide, records that were rapidly copied and distributed across the galaxy. On dozens of worlds, particularly those with a history of Imperial oppression, the reaction was immediate and volatile. Protests erupted in major cities, with citizens demanding answers about the Empire's hidden atrocities. Separatist movements that had long simmered below the surface seized the opportunity, launching coordinated strikes against Imperial installations. On Tagria, Arvel and Lien found themselves unexpectedly elevated to positions of influence. Their early warnings, initially dismissed, had proven prescient, and the local population looked to them for guidance in the absence of functioning Imperial leadership. "We were lied to about our own history," declared Councillor Vega, who had rapidly reinvented himself as a champion of truth and transparency. "The people demand accountability." Across the galaxy, the story repeated itself. The revelation of the Arc-1 genocide catalyzed long-suppressed grievances against Imperial rule. On Regelis Prime, the situation finally penetrated the complacency of Imperial High Command. Emperor Valerian himself convened an emergency session of the Supreme Council, demanding explanations and solutions. "How is it possible," he thundered, "that a civilization we eliminated centuries ago now threatens the stability of my empire?" Fleet Marshal Dorn cleared his throat uncomfortably. "It appears, Your Majesty, that the extinction of the Arc-1 was exaggerated in official reports." Exaggerated? The Emperor's voice was dangerously quiet. "Some survivors must have escaped, Your Majesty, and they've clearly spent the intervening centuries developing technologies beyond our current capabilities." The truth was even more disturbing than the Emperor realized. The Arc-1 ship possessed technology that could bypass the Empire's most sophisticated detection systems, render their weaponry inert, and penetrate their supposedly impregnable defenses. Finally recognizing the severity of the threat, Vice Admiral Ralston was assigned to lead a substantial battle group to Tagria. His orders were explicit: secure the planet, gather intelligence on the Arc-1 vessel, and prepare for engagement. Ralston's fleet arrived at Tagria 3 days after the Arc-1 ship's departure. The Vice Admiral, a veteran of numerous campaigns against pirates and separatists, was visibly unsettled by the precision of the attack. Not a single civilian building had been damaged, yet every military installation lay in ruins. Captain Storm, Ralston addressed Arvel formally upon their first meeting. I understand you were among the first to detect the Ark-1 vessel. You're to remain on Tagria and provide my intelligence officers with a complete debriefing. With respect, Admiral, Arvel replied. The Ark-1 ship has already departed. Based on its trajectory and the pattern of its attack, I believe its next target will be Valaris Station. Ralston's eyes narrowed. And how could you possibly know that? Valaris is the Empire's primary trade and military coordination hub for this sector. If the Ark-1 want to maximize damage to Imperial infrastructure while minimizing civilian casualties, it's the logical target. The Vice Admiral dismissed his theory with a scoff. The fleet will determine the enemy's intentions. You will remain here, as ordered. But Arvel and Lien had no intention of waiting on Tagria, while the Empire fumbled its response to the Ark-1 threat. With the help of sympathetic local officials, they secured passage on a small scout vessel, ostensibly to assist with evacuation efforts, but with a very different mission in mind. We're actually doing this? Lien asked as they prepared the ship for departure. Disobeying direct orders from a vice admiral, Arvel checked the navigation systems one final time. The Empire would rather save face than save lives. We can't let that happen. As they piloted their small craft away from Tagria, carefully avoiding detection by the Imperial fleet, they detected something unusual, a trail of quantum particles leading away from the planet, too regular to be natural. They're leaving breadcrumbs, Lien realized, analyzing the pattern. The Ark-1 want the Empire to follow them. It's a trap, Arvel agreed. But what kind? During their journey, they intercepted a fragmented transmission that appeared to be from the Ark-1 vessel. We have not forgotten. We will shatter the darkness of lies. The message repeated at regular intervals, broadcast on frequencies the Empire no longer monitored. It wasn't meant to communicate with Imperial forces, but to reach potential allies, those who had suffered under Imperial rule and might join the Ark-1 cause. Meanwhile, on Regelis Prime, Emperor Valerian had moved beyond shock to cold fury. The reports flooding in from across the galaxy painted a picture of an empire beginning to fracture under the weight of its own secrets. This cannot stand, he declared to the Supreme Council. If the Ark-1 possessed technology superior to ours, we must employ extraordinary measures. Fleet Marshal Dorn exchanged a significant look with the Minister of Military Research. You refer to Project Omega, Your Majesty? I do. The Emperor's voice was resolute. Authorize its deployment immediately. The Council chamber fell silent. Project Omega, a classified weapons platform capable of unleashing destruction on an unprecedented scale, had been banned by Imperial decree after a single test demonstrated its horrifying potential. That the Emperor would consider its use spoke volumes about the perceived threat. As Arvel and Lien's scout ship approached Valaris Station, they detected the massive form of the Aegis of Remembrance already in position near the vital Imperial installation. The station, a sprawling complex of docking facilities, command centers, and trading hubs, served as the nerve center for Imperial operations throughout the sector. We're too late, Lien whispered, watching as the Ark-1 vessel hovered ominously near the station. They're already here. Before they could decide on a course of action, space around them warped as Vice Admiral Ralston's battle group emerged from faster-than-light travel. Apparently, the Admiral had reached the same conclusion as Arvel regarding the Ark-1's target. The Imperial warships immediately moved into attack formation, weapon systems locking onto the Aegis. But something strange happened. Many of the automated targeting systems failed to engage, returning error messages. Target unidentified. Cannot confirm hostile intent. Ralston, undeterred, ordered manual targeting. The lead vessels of his fleet opened fire, their energy weapons streaking toward the Ark-1 ship. But the beams dissipated harmlessly against some invisible barrier surrounding the alien vessel. The Aegis's response was swift and devastating. It emitted a pulse of energy that washed over the Imperial vessels, shorting out systems and leaving them drifting powerless. Only Ralston's flagship, shielded by experimental technology, remained fully operational. Simultaneously, smaller craft launched from the Aegis, heading toward Valaris Station itself. Unlike the brutal efficiency of Imperial boarding parties, these vessels docked with surgical precision, avoiding civilian areas and targeting only the station's military command centers. On the station, panic spread as Arc-1 warriors, the same mechanical entities that had attacked Tagria, moved methodically through the corridors, disabling security systems and securing strategic locations. Again, they demonstrated an unsettling selectivity, ignoring civilian personnel while neutralizing Imperial military with ruthless efficiency. The station's main communication array suddenly activated, broadcasting across all frequencies. The screens throughout Valaris and across Ralston's fleet, filled with historical footage. The systematic destruction of the Arc-1 homeworld, the deployment of biological weapons against a defenseless population, the methodical erasure of an entire civilization from official records. The footage was authentic, bearing Imperial verification codes that couldn't be counterfeited. It had been extracted from the Empire's own classified archives. The effect on Imperial personnel was immediate and profound. Many stood frozen in horror at the evidence of their government's atrocities. Others abandoned their posts, refusing to fight for an empire built on such foundations. Vice Admiral Ralston, however, remained unmoved. Propaganda, he dismissed, though the tremor in his voice betrayed his uncertainty. Prepare to deploy Omega Protocol. On his flagship's bridge, technicians began a complex sequence to activate the superweapon that had been secretly installed despite the Emperor's public ban on its use. Omega Protocol would generate a quantum singularity capable of consuming both Valaris Station and the Arc-1 vessel, along with every living being aboard them. Arvel and Lien, monitoring Imperial communications from their scout ship, intercepted the authorization codes for Omega. They're going to sacrifice the entire station, Arvel realized, horror dawning as he understood Ralston's intentions. Thousands of civilians just to eliminate the Arc-1. We have to stop them, Lien said, already plotting an intercept course to Ralston's flagship. Using the chaos of the battle as cover, they managed to dock with the Vice Admiral's ship, slipping aboard among the confusion of damage control teams responding to localized systems failures caused by the Archon's energy pulse. They encountered several junior officers who, having witnessed the historical footage, were experiencing profound moral crises. Is it true? Asked the young lieutenant, her face pale. Did we really do that to them? It's true, Arvel confirmed. The Empire wiped them out and buried the evidence. And now Ralston is preparing to commit another atrocity to cover up the first. With the help of sympathetic crew members, they fought their way to the ship's power core, where the Omega device was being prepared for activation. We need to disable the quantum initiator, Lien explained, accessing the control systems. Without it, the singularity can't form. As she worked to sabotage the weapon, Arvel engaged in hand-to-hand combat with Ralston's security detail, using his smaller stature to advantage in the confined space. The irony wasn't lost on him. The smallest officer in the fleet now fighting to prevent the Empire's biggest mistake. Despite their efforts, Ralston activated the backup systems, beginning the 120-second countdown to Omega's deployment. The Vice Admiral's voice echoed through the ship. For the eternal glory of the Empire. At that moment, the ship shuddered as Arc-1 warriors breached the hull, having targeted Ralston's vessel specifically after detecting the Omega energy signature. They moved with purpose toward the power core, eliminating resistance with precise strikes. In the chaos, Arvel managed to reach the bridge, confronting Ralston directly. The Vice Admiral stood defiant, a symbol of Imperial might even as his fleet lay crippled around him. You're a traitor, Storm, he spat, siding with our enemies. The real treason, Arvel replied, was when the Empire betrayed its founding principles by committing genocide. The bridge doors slid open, admitting a figure unlike the mechanical warriors they had seen before. This was an Arc-1 in the flesh, tall and regal, with iridescent skin that seemed to shimmer with internal light. Centuries of exile had changed them, but the burning intensity in their eyes was unmistakable. "I am General Eldarian," the Arc One announced, its voice melodious yet filled with ancient pain. "Last commander of the Arc One Defense Force. We have come to end your empire as you ended our world." Ralston laughed bitterly. "Then you're too late. In less than a minute, Omega will activate, and this entire region of space will cease to exist." Arvel stepped between them, addressing both commanders. "Listen to me. This ends now. The truth about the Arc One genocide needs to be acknowledged. The Empire must be held accountable. But destroying Valaris Station won't bring justice. It will only create more innocent victims." He turned to Eldarian. "You spared civilians on Tagria. You've avoided civilian casualties here. You want justice, not vengeance." The Arc One general's expression remained impassive. "Justice requires consequences. Then let the consequence be truth," Arvel urged. "Let the Empire fall by its own weight as its citizens learn what was done in their name." The countdown continued, 30 seconds remaining. "Please," Arvel implored, "don't become what you hate." For a moment that stretched into eternity, General Eldarian stood motionless. Then, with a gesture almost too quick to follow, the Arc One sent a command signal to the Aegis. Immediately, a different kind of energy pulse washed through the vessel. "The Omega core has been neutralized," announced Lien, who had joined them on the bridge. Whatever they just did, it worked. Ralston lunged for the manual override, but Arvel intercepted him, the two men grappling briefly before the Vice Admiral collapsed, the fight gone out of him as he realized his weapon had failed. The aftermath unfolded rapidly. Valaris Station remained intact, though the Imperial military presence had been effectively neutralized. The Arc One took control of the station's communication array, broadcasting the truth about their genocide to every corner of the Empire. On Regelis Prime, Emperor Valerian faced an unprecedented crisis as the population demanded answers. The carefully maintained facade of imperial benevolence crumbled in the face of irrefutable evidence of past atrocities. From Valaris, the Arc One transmitted a final message across all imperial channels. This is the truth they concealed. Awaken to reality. The impact was seismic. Throughout the galaxy, imperial authority collapsed as citizens refused to support a government built on lies. Military units defected, colonial administrations declared independence, and the carefully maintained structure of imperial power disintegrated within days. Aboard the Aegis of Remembrance, Arvel and Lien joined with moderate Arc One leaders and imperial defectors to begin planning for what would come next. The Empire was falling, but something would need to replace it, perhaps a more equitable alliance of worlds where no species could dominate another. "The transition won't be easy," Lien cautioned during one such meeting. "Centuries of imperial rule have left deep scars, as have centuries of exile," added General Eldarian. "My people cannot simply forget." "No one is asking for forgetting," Arvel said, "only for a chance to build something better from the ruins." As the Aegis prepared to depart Valaris Station, leaving behind the beginnings of a new political reality, General Eldarian offered a final reflection. "We endured centuries of suffering, but we remain alive, and the living must learn forgiveness, or find another path." The massive ship slipped away into the darkness, leaving behind an empire in dissolution and the promise of a difficult but potentially more just future. On the observation deck of Valaris, Arvel and Lien watched the Aegis disappear from view. "Do you think they'll come back?" Lien asked. Arvel considered the question carefully. "I think they'll be watching, waiting to see if we learn from history or repeat it." "And what about us? What do we do now?" Arvel smiled faintly. "We tell the truth. All of it. No matter how painful. That's where healing begins." As they turned away from the viewport, alerts began sounding throughout the station. Not warnings of attack, but notifications of incoming vessels from dozens of worlds, responding to the call for a new beginning. The journey toward redemption would be long and fraught with challenges, but for the first time in centuries, it would be founded on truth rather than deception. In the void of space, the Aegis of Remembrance continued its journey, carrying with it the memory of a lost world and the hope for a universe where such losses would never again be concealed behind lies of empire.